Alright, so I wanted to have a look at what it would be like if WoW used NFTs. Now, I think WoW's a good example of this because it's quite broad. There's lots of different examples you could think of that NFTs might be used for, from mounts, the items in games, skins, transmogs, achievements. And most of us have also spent way too much time on that game and we've invested so much into it. So I'm going to start off by showing the clip of Asmongold that kind of inspired this video. So let's just have a look at that.
And actually, I don't really hate NFTs. I want to make this very clear. I hate 99.9% of NFTs. So I don't have a problem with NFTs fundamentally. I just have a problem with 99.9% of them. Actual NFT usage. Yeah, there you go.
So I agree with Asmin here, but let's have a look at that fraction of a percent use case of NFTs that might work in WoW. Now, I'm not saying games like this need NFTs, but I am saying there are use cases, and in some of those cases, it might actually improve the game. So we're going to break this down into two categories that NFTs could be used for. It's either going to be things like aesthetics, mounts, transmog, skins, things that are kind of like achievements that have no bearing on your power within the game. So there's no pay to win aspect. And I think this is probably the hardest to argue against, that there isn't a use case for NFTs. So we'll look at that mostly. But there is the other use case of things like weapons, your character being an NFT, and there's a little bit more of a pay to win aspect to this. Now, I still think this is a great use case since a lot of games do have that anyway, and it would just be better having an NFT. But I can definitely see how players could be very resistant to that. So we're going to start off with, what if mounts, or at least some mounts, were minted as NFTs within the game instead of just being data within the game? So we're going to use Asmongold as an example here again. So Asmon's not only very good at the game, but he's also a collector of these achievements and mounts within the game. So we're going to have a look at a mount that he got that took him an extremely long time to get, and keep in mind that this mount, only a fraction of players even have this mount, so it's very hard to get. Let's just have a look at the reaction.
Nobody else has gotten the mount, which means that I am about to get the mount. No way. No fucking way. Holy shit! Holy shit! Yes, dude! Yes, dude! There it is, boys! There it is, boys! Yes! The believers! I knew it, man! I fucking knew it!
So you can see there how much he's invested into that, and you can see the chat going nuts. You can see how rare that mount is and how much that means. Now, I want you to imagine if that was an NFT on the blockchain. So instead of that being in-game, which is still super special, it's now a collectible item on the blockchain, similar to a Pokemon card that you physically own and that can never really be taken away from you. The devs could obviously still change the function of that mount, but even if the World of Warcraft completely shut down, they shut down all the servers, you would still own that NFT on the blockchain as a collectible. And then, for example, WoW might come out with a different game and they might say, okay, anyone with this NFT can now flex this in this new game, for example. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, the fact that you can sell the NFT makes it less special because now someone could just buy the NFT instead of going and farming for it like Asmon did. And I do agree that is one, that's a fair point. But I would point out that you can actually do that already. You can sell your character. I mean, I've sold my WoW character on the black market. You could easily sell a character or buy these type of things. But someone like Asmon isn't going to sell his character, just like he's probably not going to sell the NFT version of the collectible mount if it was an NFT. But I would argue that it would make it a lot more special owning an NFT that you knew the value was something insane. And I would predict that something like this mount, or some of the mounts that he's collected, would probably sell for, thousands, if not tens of thousands, potentially even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on timing, the rarity, if there's someone obviously willing to pay that kind of money for something like this. But the point is, things like this already go on, and it would be far better if the player had ownership of these items. And I think it would make it a lot more special. And I'll give you an example right now of Asmon and his friend McConnell actually selling a mount within the game for gold within the game. And keep in mind that this gold is actually, again, purchasable on the black market or through WoW themselves. So you can actually purchase the in-game currency by using fiat, giving that to World of Warcraft or Blizzard. So they're effectively buying this mount with money. So this is how you might imagine it would happen if this was an NFT and someone's purchasing it. So to give some context for this clip, Asmon and his guild spent a lot of time raiding for this mount, and a particular member won the role for the mount, but his friend McConnell really wanted the mount and actually took the mount. They gathered the gold and now they have to pay him to give the mount to the rightful owner. So it just gives you some context on how much some people could be willing to pay for these mounts if they were NFTs. But let's have a look.
But if you give it to him, people are gonna think he's good.
No, they won't. Nobody is going to think Reverend is good. I can promise you that. I can promise you no one's going to think Reverend's good. I'm sorry, Reverend. You can make 11,000 gold out of one raid. All right, I got them out. Fuck yeah! All right.
So you can see Asmon stole them out there, but he ended up giving it to Reverend. But the point of that clip is you can see how valuable some of those NFTs might be if the NFT was a mount. So instead of a content creator gaining massive content there, it's obviously a lot of hype around it even without it being an NFT. Imagine just a normal person that got lucky, spent a lot of time getting his character ready to do these raids, finally got into one and got one of these mounts. All of a sudden, all that work amounts to an NFT that may be worth thousands of dollars. So you can see here, this is one use case for NFTs within WoW, and I think you would find it hard to argue that this is harmful anyway. It's completely harmless. It improves the player experience. It gives ownership to the players. I know for me, I spent 10 plus years of many days of 8-hour plus days on this game, raiding at high levels, competing at high levels, and I would love it if some of those transmogs, weapons, mounts, achievements were sitting on my MetaMask account, on OpenSea, maybe in a profile on Blizzard where you could show your NFTs. You know, I would love it if that was the case. Now that's the aesthetic side of games, the social side of games that NFTs could be used for. Let's have a look at what if the weapons within the games were NFTs. Now, I'd want to point out here that there's many different ways that the devs could do this. So when I say a weapon being an NFT, you might instantly think, well, that could just be sold. Someone could just pay for all the weapons, no matter how many thousands of dollars they are, and instantly win the game. Well, the devs would have control over this, so you could just have the really high-end weapons or a select few weapons that were NFTs. They don't all need to be NFTs. Or you could have the bind on equip weapons and armor as NFTs. So if you didn't know what that means, it's in the game of WoW, you have items that are bound to you instantly when you pick them up, and ones that can be sold, so they're not bound once they pick them up. So you can sell them on the auction house or give them to other players. And this is obviously purchased with gold, which is now available to be bought with fiat. So it's essentially pay to win with those items anyway. So the point here is the devs could have control of that. They could make some NFTs and therefore purchasable by other players, and some of them not. But I would argue that it could be better to have these high-end weapons and armor as NFTs. And some of them are so rare that only less than 10% of players actually own or have these armors and weapons. So I think even if they were NFTs, a lot of cases this would just bring so much hype around it, and a lot of those players wouldn't sell it anyway. And they would only sell it for a ridiculously high price that would bring so much hype around the game anyway, and give that game an extra layer of fun. And again, there is an aspect here of ownership. So you spend all that time in the game, and you eventually get that item you want. It is more rewarding if that was truly owned by you. And you might think, well, it's not truly owned by you, they could change it at any time. Yes, they could change the stats of that weapon at any time, the function of it in game, but you'd still have that NFT that's minted on the blockchain that they can't touch. So at the very minimum, it's a collectible and it's yours. So that's two ways that WoW could implement it. Just aesthetically, just with mounts, or they could go with weapons and it could be done in any way that isn't seen as either pay to win or ruining the game. There is a right way to do it, And there's obviously a lot of wrong ways they could do it as well. But this isn't unique to NFTs. Devs ruin games all the time, and I suspect half of the reason why Asmon is a little bit hesitant with NFTs is probably because he's been traumatized and he has post-traumatic stress from WoW itself and what the devs have done to the game over time. Another reason why Asmon and a lot of other players are opposed to NFTs is because of the bad name NFTs have. So let's just show another clip of him talking about this exact reason why he might be opposed to NFTs.
But the reason why I don't do it, this is the reason, is because I feel like by doing it, I'm promoting the idea of NFTs, and I don't really want to promote the idea of them because it somehow like normalizes it and it hurts other people. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why I walked it back and I didn't do it. And I feel like the perception of NFTs is just so negative that even if it was done in a completely harmless way, people would still be hostile towards it. I thought about this a lot. All I do is lay in bed and jerk off and think. So that's about it. It could be normalizing correct usage. You're right about that. And that's another really good point. And I thought about that. And I'm still not completely off the table with it, but we'll see.
So I think this can only really be resolved with time and game devs bringing out games where it works. And we're still so early on in this space. So let's just have a look at some of the games that are really innovating in this space. And they're also all doing it in a different way. And I think as these games come out, they'll be more refined and we'll see what works, what doesn't. And I really think it's going to be inevitable with games using these NFTs, not only because they enhance the games for players, but also because they're quite good for the devs as well. So if we look at Superior for an example first, the NFTs in game are really only giving you extra experience points, a higher level cap, which all other players could still achieve anyway. So you just start off with a higher level cap, and a few extra talent tree options that have no pay to win aspect to them. So they're just a little bit of extra utility. Now, so here what you're paying for with the NFT is the ownership. So your ability to resell your character when you level it, and a little bit of convenience with the leveling. So a very good use case where you own your character, it gives you a little bit of extra convenience in the game, but there's no pay to win aspect at all. Then if we look at Spider Tanks, for example, they have a little bit more of a pay to win relationship with their NFTs. So if you purchase an NFT, it has a little bit more power, and you can also rent out your NFT. So free to play players can come in, and when they queue up for a game, they have access to potentially pilot one of these rarer NFTs. Now, as you play the game, you get rewards, and you're able to use those rewards as purchasing power to purchase upgrades to your tanks. So all this is accessible with free to play players, but the more money you spend on these NFTs, you can actually give yourself more power in game. But the good thing here is there's still a path for free to play players to earn in this game and build on their less expensive NFT. Now, for a lot of players, this is too much pay to win, but I guarantee you there's a lot of players that do not care and they're happy to pay to win, and they're happy to play against players that are paying more money. But then if we look at a game like Big Time, the only use case for NFTs in this game is with skin. And there is also a mechanic where if you have certain NFTs, you have access to VIP areas that have no pay to win aspect to them. It's just a flex and a fun thing within the game. Now you can purchase NFTs that help you farm more NFTs, which are again only skin and aesthetics, and there's no pay to win aspect to them. Or you could potentially find some of these NFTs on, say, raid bosses, for example. Now, Ember Sword's another studio that's implementing NFTs this way, so they've only got NFTs that affect aesthetics, so there's no pay to win at all with this game as well. We've also got Illuvium, who are implementing NFTs in a lot of different ways. One unique way is as you capture Illuvials, those Illuvials will be NFTs. So this game is set up similar to how Pokemon, you can imagine it like Pokemon. So you go out into the overworld and you'll capture these Illuvials, or Pokemon if you will, and they will be minted as NFTs, and then you can battle with those NFTs. Now you own them, so you could also sell them. Now they do have an auto battler in this, so there is skill involved, and some of those Illuvials will be super rare, so they'll obviously be worth a lot more, and they'll be a lot more scarce. Lastly, I want to mention Mirandus. So Mirandus is a really big project where it's a huge RPG and they want to have the whole world player owned. So as far as they've announced so far, pretty much everything within the world is going to be an NFT or owned by players. Everything from the taverns to the horses to the avatars to the boats to the cemeteries. It's all going to be a player run economy and everything's going to be on the blockchain, and it's all going to be owned by players. So you can see here there's a lot of different studios that are developing these games in a lot of different ways utilizing these NFTs. So over time, over years, I don't know how long it's going to take, we're going to see what works and what doesn't, and we're going to also build trust. So you hear Asmon talking about he doesn't want to do NFTs because they have such a bad name. This will just take time. So as these games develop and prove NFTs work and also develop trust, this barrier to entry is going to be reduced, and you'll have these big content creators eventually coming through when it's not such a taboo thing to do. But like I said, this will just take time and the work of all these studios. Alright, let me know if you enjoyed that, and let me know if you think there were good examples of NFT usage in WoW, and if you're excited for the future of Web3 gaming and these NFT games. And make sure to subscribe if you are keen for some more Web3 content like that. And yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.